To record that.
Yep, and I'll send it out to you guys. Thanks, Erin.
Okay. Thank you.
Alyssa, all yours. Go ahead.
Okay, so I am Melissa. I'm a second year here at Cottonmouth West. I am from Klamath Falls, Oregon, so Southern Oregon. I did my undergrad at Oregon Institute of Technology. Sorry, we always just called it OIT, down in Klamath, and then started here at Cottonmouth West last year. So,
thanks, Alyssa. Let's go just alphabetical by first name. So we'll start with Alvin, and you can figure out who's next of the first year students. Go ahead, Alvin.
So hi everyone, I'm Alvin, and I'm from Bay Area, California. I went to UC Davis for my undergraduate, and probably Cesar.
Hi everyone, my name is Cesar. I'm a first year med student. I'm from Portland, Oregon, and I graduated from the University of Portland. So Leanna?
Hi, my name is Leanna. I am from Phoenix, Arizona, and I went to Northern Arizona University.
Hi, my name is Mira. I'm from California. I went to UC Merced for undergrad.
You guys, thank you so much. We'll start with kind of the questions you guys wanted to hear about, and then we'll go back. So from our med students, admissions process. Some of our guests today are first and second year in undergrad, so they're just kind of looking ahead at the path in front of them. Same order, you don't have to touch on everything because you can pass it around. Alyssa, what are some of the preparations you did when you were getting ready to apply for med school? Let's just paint the picture and then we'll answer some questions to fill in gaps.
Yeah, so I majored in biology health sciences. So it was kind of like a pre-med major. I took as many upper level science courses as I could. So lots of anatomy, lots of physiology, pathology, things like that, that are related to medicine, because I wanted to kind of focus my undergrad towards what interested me. I did some shadowing, lots of volunteering. I had some pre-med like clinical health experience that I can talk about, but I want to let everybody else jump in as well. So.
Yeah, so I can go next. So when I was in UC Davis, I majored in biotech. It was actually probably one of the lesser common pre-med majors, I guess. Usually like my other fellow biotech major people, they usually just go to biotech industry, and I'm just the only one that like kind of wants to do pre-med in there. So but yes, I did still do like a good amount of like volunteering. I had like a couple leadership roles in the clubs. It was more just like I was really interested into volunteering, so I was part of those clubs. And then I had a couple of shadowing experiences, just like Lisa said. And then what else? I had like I was a behavior technician as one of my like major like kind of like clinical experiences before I came into Commonwealth West. So that was it. Some part of it.
And I was a biochem major in undergrad. And I would say I was also working like almost full time throughout undergrad. So I didn't have time for like clubs much of the time or research during my first like 3 years of college. So I was kind of sporadically volunteering at like Habitat for Humanity and other places. And then my senior year, I started scribing, medical scribing, and volunteering at a hospital. And I did some research my senior year as well before coming to Commonwealth West.
I majored in microbiology. Well, that was like my last major that I ended up on. I kind of switched around a ton in undergrad, but microbiology was what I ended up with. During undergrad, I did some research and volunteered in the emergency department near my university. I was a resident assistant also for 3 years and a TA for classes here and there. And then during my gap year, for half of it, I was in a rheumatology office and I was a medical assistant and scribe. I would kind of go back and forth, alternating on those roles. And then for the second half of my gap year, I was an EMT.
So I did bioengineering as my undergrad major. Kind of like Alvin says, like not a lot of people do bioengineering for med school. Most of my classmates ended up working in the industry. And for preparation, I did a lot of like upper level like bioscience and bioengineering courses that like equivalent of the bioscience courses. I did research for a few years. I volunteered in the ER. I volunteered with kids for a few years, and then I took like a 2.5 year gap year where I worked as a scribe at various clinics and places.
So you guys are getting to get to meet our med students a little bit and hear more about them. From what you've heard so far, does that lead you, the audience, into any general questions? I'll take us kind of into the general categories, but we'd love to talk with you. If you want to raise your digital hand or just unmute your microphone, feel free. And no problem, you guys are welcome to listen. And I know that Shannon and Aaron will jump in there because they like to hear some information now and then too. So let's go back through one more time. Actually, let's go to the audience. Malachi, just tell us about yourself for a second. Let's get a little engagement, if you don't mind.
I'm a freshman at Boise State University this year. I am currently majoring in health studies with a science emphasis. And I'm not sure really where I'm going to go, but I'm just trying to get a general idea of what med school is like.
And because you're a freshman, this is actually a good lead off. Do you know the difference between the DO and MD options? Have you started looking at that, or do you want to hear more about that today?
any information I can get, I'll take.
Sounds good. So for the audience, there are well over 200 medical schools across the country. Roughly 60 of them, 40 plus like 60 sites are osteopathic medical schools. So chances are you're going to apply to medical schools probably first based on geography. That's just the truth. A lot of people apply like West Coast if they happen to be from the West Coast, but then you may look into the osteopathic versus allopathic options out there. We'll go through and hear from the med students again about why you might choose one. The main two differences, you're going to have a physical class difference from DO schools. You get a couple hundred hours. Every week, you're going to do a couple hours of hands-on training. So you are a physician who has different modalities taught to you. They kind of correlate a bit with chiropractic, massage therapy, physical therapy, and more. But then you choose to specialize after you graduate from an MD or DO school, you will go to the same residency programs side by side with MD graduates. So one, perhaps the hands-on approach attracts you. And I think we as a medical school, Comp Northwest does a good job. We have a really amazing anatomy program. You get access to the donor patients' cadavers there, more so than some med schools. And we do a great job of training our students with our standardized patient program. So you get to go through these mock physical exams over the course of your first 2 years. And I feel like when our medical students get to the third year, they are a little above some of the medical schools in terms of just stepping into a room one-on-one with the patient and having good patient care established from an early age. In the end, you're going to specialize anywhere. I don't think DO or MD has much of an advantage anymore in terms of going to any specialty field. You guys just need to find a school that supports you, get involved with the research that might open some doors. So let's go through more time. Alyssa, where do you think you're going? And did you apply DO, MD, and why DO, if that makes sense?
Yeah, so I am planning on doing emergency medicine. That's kind of what I want to go into. I applied both MD and DO. I kind of knew that DO was my preference, but I was afraid I wasn't going to get in anywhere. And so I was like, I'm going to apply to as many schools as I possibly can because I only want to do this once. And it happened to work out in my favor. So I applied both, but DO for me, I liked the difference in the way that we are taught. So from day one, you're kind of taught, you look at every case a little bit differently. You look at the person as a whole, which I will say MD programs are getting better and better at doing that. I think as medicine has progressed, that has greatly improved, but DOs that's kind of what we've always been doing, right? So every time you look at a patient, every time you look at a case or you look at a set of symptoms, you look at it in a different way. And I wanted that additional tool. I also really wanted the option to be able to work with my hands, and MD programs don't offer that. So that was kind of what pushed me in this direction.
Before we go to Alvin, Alyssa, you applied to many schools. Just for the pre-meds, I'm curious, how many schools did you apply to? How far did you cast your net? And how much did it cost you? And it's good to know the application expenses.
Yeah. Okay. So when I said many to me it seemed like a lot to me, but not as many as some people. I probably did 30 primary applications, which to me seemed like a lot because it was expensive. That probably cost me a couple $1,000, $3,000, $4,000, something like that. And then of those, I only ended up doing probably like 10 secondary applications. Which you do have to pay for the secondaries as well. Those were cheaper though. I think that cost me like $400 or $500. And then of those, I only ended up interviewing at I only did 2 interviews, but I got offers for 3. So part of that was I had made some mistakes in submitting my secondary apps. So they couldn't offer me an interview. So pro tip, triple check those. It was something really stupid that I could have avoided. And then I chose to just do the 2 interviews because I knew where I wanted to go. So
I'm not telling you not to apply to 30 schools as Alyssa did. A lot of people do this, but I think the dozen number, if you know you're going to complete the secondaries at those dozen, is probably a better way to save some money, because people do apply to 30. Almost no one completes all 30 secondaries because it's expensive. It's $196, I think, for a COMAS application and $48 per additional school. So you can kind of multiply that. And then secondaries can be anywhere from $0. There's a few schools which are free, but most will be like $75, some over $100 for completing a secondary. So it multiplies pretty quickly. So Erin's the true person, listen to her. But I think about a dozen med schools that you know you're going to complete the primary and secondary will save you from those additional 20 primary fees, maybe.
And I would just say the national average is actually 17 for at least MD applications. I would say that's probably about right for osteopathic as well. There are fee assistance programs. So if you qualify under 4 times the poverty level as of right now, you can get a fee assistance program for at least the allopathic. It saves some of your money on your MCAT, and you get 20 free primary schools. Some of the schools that participate in that financial assistance program actually will waive your secondaries as well. The osteopathic medical schools do have a fee waiver program. That's just there's a limited number of them, so you have to apply for it early. And I think I want to say that they do the same amount as I want to say they do 20, but I could be wrong about that.
We honor those that have, if a COMUS accepts you for the fee waiver program, then we honor you for secondaries too.
Yep. So anyway, so that would be something to think about, but 17 is the national average. Boise State average for students that are in the room that are Boise State, we usually have students around 13 to 15. So Luke's number is a really good, accurate number for probably a good number.
Yeah, I just think if you can consider which schools you're going to complete a secondary at, then you may not throw some money away on the beginning of the process. Alvin, how about yourself? DO, how many schools? What did it look like?
Yeah, so for me, currently I'm thinking going into most likely family medicine or pediatrics. It's because I love working with kids. I have due to like my behavior technician experience that I did before, I worked with like a good amount of kids before, and I really like those experiences. I also want to like stay with them like lifelong, so like family medicine, so I can like see them grow up, and I feel like that'd be a really good process. In terms of like applying to schools, I think I remember I applied to around like 22 schools, I think, and then most of them were like pretty much all of them were like DO schools. It's also just because I really wanted to go into DO due to my also like since I went to UC Davis, we have like the annual health conference that our school kind of hosts each year. And then so during those conferences, there were like a couple workshops that were regarding to OMM, and then I was attending those workshops, and then I really had like that first like kind of experiences during like undergraduate with like I really like the OMM skills. It was like really fascinating to me how like you can just do like quick manipulations to like treat someone, and then people feel way better afterwards. And then that just really inspired me to like also be part of like SOMA and UC Davis to learn more about like just the like differences between like DO and MD. And then that also like transition to me like during my master's program, I did also gain like some OMM experiences before, like seeing it in like a clinic, and that's why I applied to most DO schools.
Thanks, Alvin. Go ahead, Cesar.
I think I want to go into orthopedic surgery because that's where I spent like 2.5 years scribing at a clinic, and I really enjoyed like seeing the patients get better after surgery. And I applied to 30 schools, 20 MD and 10 DO. And I'm a big fan of the fee assistance program because I used it and I only paid like $200 for the whole application cycle, which was very nice. And I got into a couple MD and a couple DO schools through that cycle. But I ultimately chose Western because I knew I wanted to stay in Oregon, close to like my support systems and my family, my significant other and friends. And I really like the school, like everybody, the whole community is very friendly and non-competitive at all. So I really appreciate that. And I like the fact that it's kind of a smaller school. I think our class is 112 students. So you get kind of more easy access to professors and the facilities. So it's pretty nice.
I applied to about, I want to say 25 schools, both MD and DO. I was mostly choosing schools based off of, you know, not really whether they were MD or DO, but like more like their curriculum and the things that they had to offer, like as a whole. And I'm interested in general surgery. I really like the idea of like doing a lot of procedural stuff, and I really like quick results. So I like to be able to see the outcome of my work pretty quickly. And yeah, I chose Western because they have, or like, there's like a lot of emphasis on board preparation, like throughout all your years. And I really like that aspect of it. Like the curriculum is catered towards helping you succeed in boards. And that was very important to me. So.
So I think I applied to around 35 schools. Like Alyssa, I was just like, I want to do one and done, hopefully. So I applied more broadly. I applied more to DO schools than MD schools. My primary goal was to be relatively close to home, but also like look at the school in whole. Got a few interviews, got a few acceptances. Primarily chose Western U because of their conference week and also the initial exposure that we frequently get with RSB encounters and stuff. That was really nice. And what I'm interested in doing is probably like peds or family medicine, possibly ER. I like not doing the same thing every day, and I love working with kids. And so, yeah.
Thanks, Mira. Let's reverse the order here for a second. Let's go back and look a little at Comp Northwest, the curriculum that you're talking about. So let's have one of the first year students who wants to volunteer, just discuss what it's been like so far, and then I'll ask Alyssa to kind of continue on the process, and then I can go on to the third and fourth year perhaps a bit. Does one of you want to just discuss what the basic format is in med school or what it's been like for you in the first few months?
I guess I can go. The schedule varies a lot. We have a few, since it's COVID, we have a few classes that are virtual, like online classes, and then some of them are like in person, some of them are mandatory, some of them are optional, but like in person, like not in person, but like virtually in person on Zoom. And then some of them you just like, they have the pre-recorded lectures, you watch the lectures. And then we have like OMM every week, which is our class where we learn how to do our hands-on osteopathic skills. We have seminar every week, which is where we learn our doctoring skills. And then we have like anatomy varies. Like sometimes we have like multiple times throughout the week, and then sometimes we have like none. So our schedule varies a lot, but keeps us busy. Yeah.
Thank you. One of the other first years want to touch on maybe a club or track or any other piece of the puzzle that didn't get mentioned thus far for you guys? Alvin, are you involved with clubs or tracks?
Yeah, so I involved like am involved with like a couple of clubs on campus, and I guess I can talk about like the business track I'm part of and I really wanted to do the business and medicine track, the longitudinal track for this, is because like I really wanted to like understand how to like correctly like document like soap notes, and then also like just learning how like how billing is like related to like our like code, like our soap notes really, because that's how like the medical like system is kind of worked. And then like, and just like learning how like leadership experiences and possibly like opening like a clinic by with like a couple other like classmates that I know of, getting that kind of exposure first and seeing if that's what I want to do in the future.
Before we go to Alyssa, Cesar or Liana, anything to add to that?
I'm part of the research club, where we have like a journal club every month where we read a research article and then talk about it. And then we get opportunities to work with faculty on research projects and make posters, abstracts, and get published, which is really helpful for residencies. And I'm also involved in like the Latino Medical Association Club. And I'm going to be volunteering at a clinic with them soon, doing intake and taking vitals and translating for patients. Those are kind of the main ones I'm involved in.
I am in the applied anatomy track, and I wanted to do that because, well, one, I really I want to go into surgery, and so I'm interested in wanting to like learn more in depth about anatomy and connect with other professors that are doing research in related fields. And they also said that they were going to teach like different like procedural techniques. And so I wanted to get exposure to that early on as well.
Okay, Alyssa, you can jump into second year. And I know you recently had your mock lotteries for rotations. You might finish with that and where you hope to go next year.
Yeah, so second year's a lot like first year. It's another year of didactic learning. So just like the first years, we have lectures that are online, that are pre-recorded, or that we have to go to live over Zoom. And then we do have OMM and CMNR, both of them at least once a week. And for us, it's about 4 hours per week, give or take, of each of those, sometimes more. But it just kind of depends. And then some of the first years we're talking about tracks, and I don't know that we ever actually explained what a track is. So for Comp Northwest, they offer, I don't even know how many, like 6 or 7 tracks. And they're basically ways to specialize your education a little bit more. So they are above and beyond the normal curriculum. They're not required. And at the end of your 4 years, you get like a certificate or something. I'm not really sure how that works. I haven't gotten that far yet, but so I'm part of the global health track. So we meet once a month and talk about health on a global scale. So whether that's tropical disease or disparities in healthcare across the globe. Right now we're doing a monthly case of the month. So there's a podcast that provides, like, they present a case to you, a patient, and you have to figure out what tropical disease is causing this. So it's kind of fun. We did just do our mock lottery. So third year is our first year of rotations. And for Comp Northwest, there are several regions of the state of Oregon and up near Tacoma that we can be in. And so we as a class worked together to try to figure out where everybody was going to go, because there's limited number of slots in each region. It was quite the experience. Because we're trying to make 110 people happy, and that's really hard to do. But we did finally come to a consensus, and I will be in Astoria, so up on the coast, northernmost tip of Oregon, right across from the river from Washington. So that's where I'll be next year.
Astoria rocks. I just went there on vacation like a month ago. I just love travel. So good food, brew pubs. Coast is right nearby. Sorry, it's you stumbled into a good one. You'll love it.
I picked it purposely. I love it up there. So super excited.
So a quick overview. So we have a systems-based, block-based approach for med school. And Goonies was filmed there, also important. So the systems-based, you're gonna be looking at 1 or 2 or 3 body systems together, basically quarterly. It's 4 your first year and 4 your second year, with an introductory to course at the start. Kind of what does a healthy body look like? And lots more sciences, right? A lot of biochem and stuff at the very start, I think, of the year. So once you're rolling, you can go through a block for, say, 4, 6, 8 weeks with a testing week afterwards, and then a conference week after that, and you go into your next block. So kind of 4 quarters per year, relatively speaking. And everyone has to do that all together, no choice. It's the base curriculum. Then you can choose, and half or more students will, to choose a track. That's that global medicine, rural medicine, lifestyle medicine, surgical track, and flavor it. And then most students will also be involved with 2, 3, 4 clubs. They may sign up for 6, but they realize they signed up for too many. So there's about 30 clubs for the Oregon campus to choose from, and well over 100 in California. Although when I say 100, many of them, I always joking, are like the bunny club. And of course that's for veterinary students and not for the med students. So you can't choose whatever that club is. So med school might be in the 50-hour-a-week base commitment, but it actually probably ends up being more like 60 hours a week, because almost everyone chooses research or clubs or tracks to add to the mix. Some people do more hours than that, some people less, but I like the US, it's probably 60 hours a week commitment for what most of our med students choose to do in med school. So 6 days a week, 10 hours a day, you still exercise. Maybe you take a day off on this weekend if you have family. Most students just spread it out 7 days a week and kind of roll with it. But let's go back to one more time. Alvin, is it what you thought it would be? Is it worth going to med school? I mean, as pre-med students, would you recommend it? Would you say, hell, hold off, it's really a lot harder than I thought? What's it been like for you?
Yeah, so like currently right now, it's pretty work right now of like being in med school. It's like really, It's kind of like similar to what I expected it to be honest, because I did do like a master's program before, and then even though the master's program, like we had like we were taught like similar curriculum to like what they would see like in med school. It was just that like it's like more just the pacing difference. Like in med school, it's like way more faster than what I experienced in master's program. But I already kind of knew that because like some of my friends are already second years in med school, and then they kind of told me about it, and I was like, I already like got like myself kind of prepared for it. Like, so yeah.
Cesar, you must have a little time. You volunteered to help out today, but how's it been? How's the workload? Is this just a study break for you?
Yeah, this is kind of like a nice study break. We're doing our neuro block right now, and this week's kind of terrible. So some weeks I'm like, yeah, this is worth it. I like medical school. And then weeks like this, I'm like, oof, what choice did I make? But our CMNR and like the clubs kind of keep things in perspective. Like, it's like, okay, people have made it. And then we talk to like the people who are already doctors, and they come and present cases for us. And it kind of brings things into perspective, like someday you're gonna get there. And that's kind of what keeps me going, just like the big picture.
Go ahead, Leanna.
Yeah, it is very rough some weeks, more weeks than less, but it is, yeah, definitely what Cesar was saying, like, got to remember big picture and like remember why you're here. And, you know, it's definitely hard to keep motivation sometimes, but it helps to, you know, make little goals for yourself throughout the day, like even as little as I will eat 3 meals today and around this time, hopefully, and like try to do exercise or however many times a week, and like just try to keep little goals for yourself to like maintain base human status, and it kind of helps keep you grounded. So.
Mira, how you doing?
Like people say, it's very rough. This block has not been fun for me. The HENT neuro block, it's very anatomy heavy, and me and anatomy are not friends. I've had better blocks where I felt more human. And so, but like, I think it's important to keep things in perspective. Like Cesar, Alvin, and Leanne was saying, it gets a lot, but you came in knowing it was going to be tough, and just remember what your end goal is. And things like this really helps bring things in perspective, talking to doctors, but also talking to people who aren't there yet, still in the process. Makes me feel grateful both ways. And don't forget self-care. I'm actually, I think for myself every day, I try to like set some time out for exercise, set time out for food, set time out for like just creative outlet, just something that's not school related.
Hey, Alyssa, before I hand it off to you, no, you go first. I was just thinking things too. So second year, Alyssa's getting ready to transition. She can now see third year ahead of her, and third year is usually the reward for med students. Second year is even tougher than first year because it's 2 years straight. And Alyssa's she's going to begin focusing more on the board exams coming out of winter break. So she will have med school plus board prep study for a few months. Then when she gets to May, June, she's going to have a 6-week period, which is just study for boards on your own with support for like 12 hours a day. She'll have her board exams usually the first week of June. And then hopefully a couple weeks later, she'll transition, move to Astoria and begin her clinical rotations. And usually when you hear about the 3rd and 4th year students, they're saying, this is the reward. I'm actually seeing patients now, it's real. And then you keep going for another 5 years. So Alyssa, how is second year for you thus far? And yeah, how does your winter break and boards look ahead for you?
Oh man, yeah, second year is quite a ride. It is, there are parts of it that I like better than first year. I think the curriculum I find more interesting because second year is focused more on disease processes, right? So first year is all what is normal with some disease sprinkled in. But most of us didn't get into medicine because we want to look at normal bodies all day, right? That's our goal. I want to get everybody back to that, but those aren't nearly as interesting. So second year is more fun curriculum wise. It's more interesting. which helps keep my motivation for studying up. But it is fast and furious and it never stops. So it's a lot, but I agree with everything the first years have said. Take time out for yourself, lots of self-care. And I think really trying to remember why we're here. And that's a little bit easier, I think, to do in second year, just because rotations are right around the corner. So I have a countdown on my desktop of how many days until I'm done with second year. And every day is a day closer. So we're getting there. Board studying is going to be a whole nother ballgame. And I'm kind of trying to mentally prepare for that, but I don't know that there's really a way to do that other than just do it. We're really looking forward to winter break. I don't know, Luke, if I missed anything, let me know.
No, you're good. You're good. I mean, I think it's more important for pre-med students to hear from you guys than for me to present topics. I think the impact's there. I think, so for the audience again, Western U has 2 locations, Pomona, California, Lebanon, Oregon. I haven't even touched that yet, right? 220 seats for medical students down in California and 100 here up in Oregon. Same curriculum, just different environment. Small town, Pacific Northwest versus kind of large cities, SoCal. Many students will apply to both campuses because they're both West Coast, and there's only about 10 schools, about as many as 10 schools now, right? 2 more opening in Montana. There's 2 in Utah that didn't exist when we opened in Oregon. ICOM down the road from you guys is there now. So you guys have a lot more choices to look at. Why you would look at us over other schools. 1, geography, if it calls to you, great. 2, I think we're a well-established program with good graduation rates, good board rates, all that goes with that. You've heard a little bit about our tracks. I think the anatomy program is above and beyond some other schools, and the access you can get to come in the evenings. Not all schools offer full anatomy, dissection for you all the way through. They may have a few prosected bodies, and then they give you a lot more virtual or simulation learning. We are very much a hands-on program still, and all that goes with that. There's some simulation, and there's plans to expand that portion, but we're not getting rid of the full anatomy program that all goes with that. And it's just a very friendly place. I think DO programs and Comp Northwest particularly, you get to know everybody, and the support therefore is greater when you're going through all of the huge amount of studying that you're going through. But I think almost all medical schools in the United States are pretty good choices because they meet the same accreditation. So you got to find the one that fits you. Hopefully that's us down the road. We got about 15 minutes left before we shut things down. From the pre-med students or from our pre-med advisors with us today, any questions you guys like to touch on or know more about the school in particular? Erin's thinking, she's almost close to the mute button. Lauren, we haven't met you yet. You got a mask on. Where are you at today, and where are you at in the process?
Hello, everyone. I'm a first-year graduate student. I work at the U of A. I do research. So I've only recently come to looking into medicine. But since I've been doing medical research for a while, a lot of people I work with are in this field. And I think it's a nice combo to look into both. So yeah, my only question would be if anyone has any advice for all of us.
Advice, I mean, go ahead and tell us, I mean, particular to you, it's a small enough crowd tonight. What kind of advice are you looking for? Where you're at in the process or making the decision to keep going?
Oh, just advice for pre-med applicants, like anything that you did or that you wish you had done that might have been helpful, especially in light of COVID. I know it's different probably the last couple of years than previously, but
maybe 2 or 3 of the med students want to jump in there. I don't know, maybe all 5 of us, but advice in this crazy COVID environment of preparing for med school.
I would say apply early. That was my goal and it didn't happen. So I wasn't verified for both MD and DO. I think my primary wasn't verified until like mid-September for DO, and then like mid-October for MD. And so that was just a lot of stress and heartache that you don't need. So just get it over with, submit it. And then you'll have everything verified even sooner, and then you can start on your secondaries and then hopefully get interviews sooner instead of having this long process drawn out even longer. So yes, don't wait.
So because she opened up the topic, here's the basic timeline for med schools. I'm sure you can go with your field advisors, but there's kind of a soft open in May where you can start filling out applications, get your stuff organized, get your transcripts in place, because it takes some time to get everything there. There's some support both from medical schools or a COMAS or AMCAS, depending on which or both applications you're choosing. And then there's kind of the hard open submit time first week of June. So as pre-med students, if you're applying to med school, you could hit submit from June, and we'll accept primaries all the way until February 1st. And so it varies a month or so depending on which med schools you're looking at. So you could apply in June, or you could have technically apply February 1st. February 1st is not recommended, and I'll explain why. So number one, once you've applied to that primary application service, it takes 4 to 6 weeks before the med schools get your application. So we as a med school, we don't start seeing applications until sometime in July. If that makes sense. So people applied in June, we don't see it till July. Once we get primary applications on board, we'll start processing. We'll invite most people to do secondaries. There's still always some kind of basic checkpoints you have to make. It's not this simple. It's not a 3.0, but if you are like a 2.5 or something like that, you may not get invited to do a secondary. Just good to know. So typical rule of thumb is a 3.0 or above to be in kind of the start to get in contention. MCAT scores, our average is about a 508, 509. I think a 504, 505 is a good normal range or above to be in, but we'll look at people down as low as a 500 in a normal setting. If they have a really strong GPA, like a 3.8, but they just got a 501 and they didn't test well, we're still going to look at you and give you consideration. In the end, is it just numbers? No, but we get 4,000 applications for 100 seats and 450 interviews. So when we're doing a holistic review with all these components together, yes, the grades and MCAT still play a part. So you kind of have to get in the mix there. And it's not that other parts not important. You can have tons of experience, but you still need to get at least a 3.0. I think a 3.4, 3.3 or above is a good place to be. And you kind of need an MCAT of a 500 or above. If you have a really strong GPA or a master's program, you can open that door. But I think a 504, 505 or above for us is a good place to be in consideration for interviews. Because if you don't get an interview, application really doesn't matter. You kind of throw money out there. But there's variation from different schools. So you can apply in June. We start applications in July, and we'll have an interview season running from late August or early September all the way until March. So if you apply early in the summer and your secondary gets processed and everything's sitting there, you are in consideration for an interview the entire season. DO schools do a little bit more rolling admissions, which means we fill up as we go. So we interview September 1st. A few weeks after that, we've offered people seats. If they accept them, those seats disappear and are no longer out on offer. Some of the MD schools will still have a good interview season, but then they wait towards till the end of the season to then make all their offers at once in the scholarships and things like that. But you're still better off being in there early so that you have more chance to get an interview, whether it's MD or DO, and then the offers fall when they are ready and you decide to put a deposit down when the school calls to you, or play games both ways. So the nice thing about applying early, you just give yourself the best chance to get in because you are a possible candidate for interview the entire season. Sorry, good topic. Cesar, how about you next? Any advice?
Definitely focus on grades, and focus on grades, I'd say, because that's probably the hardest thing to fix in an application. Like you can retake the MCAT if you do badly on it, but your grades are kind of harder to fix. Also, like find professors who you know pretty well, or people at your school who you know very well, to get letters of recommendation early and like save them to like Interfolio or something to distribute them later to the school instead of like struggling to find letters at crunch time when the applications are due. And then finally, I'd say try to find a way to get clinical experience. So like volunteering at a hospital, try doing a scribing job, or sorry, I'm blanking. Oh God.
ENT scribing.
ENT scribing. I can't remember the last thing I was going to say. Sorry.
Okay, I'm going to grab one of Cesar's things too. Letters of recommendation. I think if you plan ahead, they aren't too bad. You just have to know. We require one letter of recommendation from a science faculty member from one of those 4 primary sciences. So chemistry, OChem, biochem world, physics, and then biology, which could be anatomy, physiology. But you need one letter of recommendation from a science faculty member who taught you in one of those categories. So if you plot it out in advance, get to know a couple of those professors en route, let them know you need a letter of recommendation before the semester is over. You can kind of check that off like pretty easily. But if you graduate, have a 2 years of gap year, the requirement is still there, and you have to go back to a professor who teaches a class of 300, you're kind of hurting, but the requirement is still there. So I think if you plan ahead, it's not too bad. If you look back, it can be a pain in the butt, but the requirement doesn't go away. There is some exceptions where we'll take like a letter of recommendation from a supervisor if you've been out of school for more than 3 years, and you can request that. But now you're requesting individually from each medical school and juggling those things. Yeah, so plan ahead is not too bad. Wait till late in the game. It can be hard, and it's usually the requirement's not going to go away. So it's a good topic to talk about. Alvin.
Yeah, so I really like how Liana said that, and also Cesar, just like apply early. I think like time is like pretty important during the application process. I applied a little later because I was just thinking about like focusing all my time on preparing for my MCAT. But I would definitely say like try to get this application submitted earlier first, and then grades are still like a really important aspect of your application. If grades is something that like it's like kind of that you need like a little help on, I'll say that like I know like a couple of people did like post-bac programs or like a master's program, which I did too. So those like if you perform well, it also like will tell med schools that like you're also capable of like academic work. And I think the one last thing was just like also like finding like a clinical experience that you really enjoy doing, and also that's like it will also show like when during interview when you talk about it, the admissions team will definitely like know that you're really into like healthcare and you really want to be in this field. I think it's pretty important.
So he's talking about GPA, and I gave you base numbers, but there's hope for almost anybody to get med school. That's the truth. It's just a question of whether you're going to have to take a year or two to strengthen your application versus keep moving. So people mess up their freshman, sophomore year all the time, or have a couple blips on their radar, and that's okay. If you finish strongly your junior, senior year, then we're willing to kind of work with you as long as the average is there. There are people who graduate with below a 3.0, and rather than just taking lots more classes to try to drag your GPA up, at that point, the answer is kind of taking a 1-year post-bac or a 2-year master's program, and it kind of gives us a clean slate to look at. So you can still get in with a lower undergraduate grade if you, but then you're talking another 2 years of a master's program and the expenses that go with that, but the door is still open. So Mira, anything to add?
I definitely like what they said so far. Grades are important, but don't let grades be the deciding factor of whether you apply or not. If you really want to apply. My GPA was actually on the lower end of the accepting admissions. I had like a 3.2, but my MCAT and extracurriculars and letter recs thankfully balanced it out, and I got a few acceptances because of it. Also, like if you really like a school, let the school know that you're interested in them, because they're more likely to accept you if there's actual interest involved.
So I think some of the first years will be disappearing shortly. They actually have some class at 1 o'clock to head off to, like Alvin. So Alvin, thanks for joining us. Anybody else, no worries, just kind of give a wave and we'll catch you. And I'll stick around at least till the 1 o'clock and finish up the presentation. Thanks, Mira. Alyssa.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, so my advice, I mean, everything that the first years have said is great advice. I would say definitely, don't blow off your biochem. I scored, like I got good grades in biochem in undergrad, but I didn't retain very much of it. And that came back and caused problems my first year. So I struggled a lot in biochem, and it's still one of my weaker areas. So I would say, really focus on that. Also, I think Cesar brought it up. When you're doing extracurricular activities, find something that you're passionate about. Don't just check off boxes to check off boxes, mostly because it makes your life kind of miserable. So find something that you're passionate in, find something that you're passionate about. So I volunteered for CASA, which is Court-Appointed Special Advocates for Children, for 1.5 years or so. I loved that. I volunteered with the Red Cross. I didn't do research because I didn't think that sounded like my cup of tea. And it wasn't required to get in, thankfully. So just kind of go with what you know you're interested in. And that will shine through when you write about it in your personal statement, when you talk about it on interviews. It's really easy. As somebody who helps with interviews occasionally, I can tell when somebody enjoyed what they did and when they just did it because they had to do it. Not that it necessarily looks bad, but it's less obvious that you enjoyed it. So keep that in mind.
And the advice from Melissa is doubly good in that most of our interviews, we have a second-year med student on your interview panel. So we invite them to come help to choose the next generation. So they get to help select and hear from what would make you a good colleague, not just a future physician. Okay, we have about 10 minutes left. We can shut down right now, and we kind of will officially, but I'll stick around until the hour if there's any individual questions until anyone is gone. So we'll go till 1. Should people be here, but we'll shut down officially if you guys have other things to go on to, although it's the Zoom world and it's easy to click over. So Andrew, Taylor, Iman, Malachi, Shannon, and Aaron, anything you guys would like to touch on before we call it a day?
Hi, yeah, actually I had a question. So I'm a senior right now, and I'm planning on doing like the application process in the summer and the MCAT. I have it registered for April, but I haven't really started studying for it yet because I tried in the past, but I wasn't getting like the grades that I wanted and stuff like that. So I'm just wondering if you guys have any advice for that portion of the process.
Cesar, Alyssa, MCAT prep advice.
So I think I started studying for the MCAT like really seriously, like a month and a half before I took it. And I had just graduated from undergrad, so I had like all the free time to do it, to just dedicate to it. And basically I went through like all of the Kaplan MCAT prep books and did a lot of flashcards from Kaplan and a lot of practice questions and tests. So I would take like a test on a Friday and see what score I got on it. And then I would go back and check what I missed. And I would study that kind of throughout the week. And then the next Friday, I would take another practice test and hopefully I would see my score increasing. And by the time I took my MCAT, I was getting kind of the score I wanted on my practice tests. So if your test is scheduled on like April 20th and on the weekend before that, you're getting like a 497 on your MCAT practice tests, I would say cancel your MCAT and then push it off until you're getting consistently what you want to get on the actual test. I think that's my main piece of advice. Use the practice test to gauge where you're at, because that's probably the score you're going to get on the actual MCAT.
Yeah, so Caesar was way better at studying for the MCAT than I was. So I don't have a ton of advice on this one because I would not recommend that anybody did what I did. It worked out by pure luck, I swear. I was getting like 498 on the practice exams and I scored above a 500 on the actual test. I don't know how. So it worked in my favor, but I would say definitely practice. I would recommend, and I did do a couple of full length practice tests and those were very helpful. And I tried to do, some of them you can get timed and they recommend that you do at least one with the actual timing that you'll have the day of the test. And kind of play with, this sounds weird, but play with what you're gonna do during your break. Like, are you gonna get up and you're gonna walk around? Are you going to eat something? If you're gonna eat something, make sure it's got something with protein, things like that. Because the hardest part of the MCAT, I think, for a lot of students is the fatigue. By the end of that day, you are tired and your brain is tired. And so figure out what makes it easiest for you to keep going. Practice those timings, even if you're doing it in your living room, just time yourself for each section. And I like Caesar's idea as well of going back and reviewing those questions you got wrong. That's something we also do when we board study, which Caesar, you're going to find all out about that next term. So congratulations. So that becomes really big, and use those prep resources. I didn't buy like you can do like a online course for MCAT prep, but they're really expensive and I didn't want to spend that money. I also use the Kaplan prep books. And so just find a resource that's relatively cheap, and just maximize what you can get out of it, I think.
Also, if you qualify for the fee assistance program for applications, they give you like free testing for the MCAT, free prep resources, and a bunch of other stuff to prep for the MCAT. So I would look into that.
Yeah, no, I've applied for that already. It's just because when I was taking the earlier tests, yeah, I was getting like those below 500 scores. And so I got really worried. So that's why I decided to like try again like the next year. So now it's just, I guess I'm just worried because of how I was studying in the past wasn't really working for me. So what should we strive for like scores then?
So can I jump?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have two pieces. One, if you're Boise State, we have a lending library. You can borrow Kaplan, Exam Crackers, Blueprint, Princeton Review. We have all of them, so you can find the thing that works. I think it's great that you all use Kaplan, but not everybody jives with Kaplan. Sometimes there are other venues that work a little bit better. Khan Academy has a free MCAT course now this year. So I have a link to that. I do think the AAMC practice exams are the rock stars because they're the real deal. So I think that those are hugely valuable. But if you're here at Boise State University, we are happy to share some of the wealth. You can borrow a book for a couple of weeks and come back and check out another subject and see what stuff you need. A lot of them have free stuff, like free resources on creating schedule, and then also flashcards, practice questions. I love that you've all said to go over the wrong questions when you do the practice exams, but I think you need to take it one step further and review the ones you did right, because you may have guessed. And so you have to ask yourself, well, did I get it right because I knew the answer or because I guessed? And great, we're good guessers, but I don't know, Luke, for me, the score is sweet spot for me is anything a 510 or higher. I think that for osteopathic medical schools, you guys play pretty well around a 502 to a 510, but you would love it when someone has a 510 or above. I think anything below 500 is just going to be extremely harder for them to view you. And so you don't want to create that risk. You want to create a venue where you can get a good, strong score. But those would be my suggestions. And you're more than welcome to come in and chat with us about it. But just because we have it as a resource, I just wanted to put a plug in for our resource library.
No, thanks, Erin. And I don't want to say, I mean, of course, a 510 will help grease the wheels and help you get into med school. But I've heard too many current med students who did get in with a 501, 502, 503. So don't feel discouraged. But a number of med students who got in with, say, that number may have applied 2 years in a row too. You could add an extra year of applying. You may have to stop and get a gap year. So it just depends on how long the process will take for you. Higher is better. There's no argument there for any medical school because there are so many applicants coming in. We still have to use criteria to help choose who we're going to interview. Some of that criteria is research. Some of that criteria is experiences, volunteering, but half of that criteria is grades and success and MCAT scores and things too. So, okay, you guys, I think we'll shut it down. Erin, is it best for me to give you the recording, or do you want me to send the recording to, or both, to the recording to everyone who registered, or?
Please send the recording to everybody who registered, and then I actually will download it and put it on our website so that we have it as well. So thank you so much, Luke, for coming. I really appreciate it. And for all of you medical students, you have made it to the point where you're in medical school, and we value what you have to say because you have that experience behind you. I've never applied to medical school. I know how to do it, and I know how to do it and help people do it, but I'm never going to take the MCAT, thank God. But I can live vicariously through you all. So thank you so much.
Thank you all, guys. Have a great day. Cesar.
Thank you.
Lisa, thanks for joining us.